at some point you learn, hopefully the easy way, not the hard way like me, that sometimes it's not a meritocracy. You can't just like build skills and get really good at something and expect to do well, or expect a promotion, or expect for your career to move, or expect to move up in life. You have to take a look at like what actually motivates that decision.
Sometimes in life, we're lucky enough to cross paths with truly exceptional individuals. People who inspire us, challenge us, and make us believe in the power of human potential. My guest is a dear friend and a brother for many, many years. He is a brilliant civil engineer with a master's degree from Montana State, revolutionizing the way we think about infrastructure. He's also shattered many distance running records, left and right, from both indoor and outdoor. And if that isn't enough, he's also deeply committed to helping others level up in their careers and personal lives. He is here to share his insights, his struggles, his triumphs, and the mindset that allowed him to achieve so much across such diverse fields. So whether you're looking to advance your career, push your physical limits, or just become the best version of yourself, this episode is simply for you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to welcome a longtime friend and my brother, Diego Leon. If you were ever to get into the world of business, what do you think it would be?
Civil engineering.
What are some of the things that you would be fixing when it comes to civil engineering?
Houses. You know, when the roof's coming down or when the foundation's looking bad, I guess we could do repairs, just design the quick fixes. Probably a little bit of civil engineering around the house, like the design though. But I think all the experience I'm getting now is going to help with that in the future, because like now I see like the whole picture of the whole process, the project management from start to finish.
Yeah.
Meaning from like feasibility studies and deciding what the scope is to like record keeping and documentation at the very end of it. And that can take years and years and years. So I feel like now kind of the veil is lifted and I see the whole process for what it is, instead of just sitting behind a computer and doing CAD all day, which is the fate of a lot of engineers, unfortunately.
Yeah. Have you noticed when it comes to like, say, in the corporate ladder for you personally, have you been noticing like, say, their systems and how they work things and some of the things that you would make further adjustments if you were to start your own venture?
Yeah, I guess like differences in the corporate structure, like what I would do differently. Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean,
isn't it hard?
Yeah, like I've worked in the private sector and now I'm in the public sector, so it's a little bit different. But you know, they're mostly similar. It can get kind of political with like, I guess, moving up and how you progress in the company or in your organization. Obviously, the main thing is you need to build skill. That's, you know, what my mentors told me at my place of work is, don't worry too much about like your overall trajectory. Just focus on building skills right now.
Yeah. And
yeah, other than that, then it gets kind of weird, I think. Like sometimes it's not as straightforward as it probably should be, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially for like engineers in my line of work, most of us are like really focused on school and just kind of straight edge, straight arrow type of people where we have good grades, or we try to get good grades in engineering, right? Yeah. We don't really do a whole lot else. You know, we're just straight A, like what was the type A, straight edge, just like follow the rules, right?
Yeah.
At least like most people I know in my work. And, you know, that's kind of how I am too with my career, at least. But at some point you learn, hopefully the easy way, not the hard way like me, that sometimes it's not a meritocracy. You can't just like build skills and get really good at something and expect to do well, or expect a promotion, or expect for your career to move, or expect to move up in life. You have to take a look at like what actually motivates that decision.
Yeah. And I remember that post that you made in 2020 when you were pursuing your master's, and there was like this big checklist.
Yeah.
And it's so hard when people make these, say, goals, and, you know, they write it down, they put it in a journal, put it on a whiteboard, and sometimes they get it done and sometimes they don't. But the big majority of it, they don't. And for you, bro, like it's actually very inspiring for me from afar, because you're very strategic on your planning and then your goal setting, but it's like you get it done. Did you ever have a hard time when it comes to goal setting? Like, did you ever write something down where it kind of made you think twice? You're like, can I actually get this done?
Yeah, so it's funny when you say that. For some reason, my mind immediately jumps to my former coach and mentor, Chris Cepeda, who I've tried to get you to talk to at some
I
time.
remember that actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's a small world. We have like, I think he kind of knows who you are because of your cousin. But anyway, like he was really instrumental in just mentoring me, not just coaching me into becoming a great runner, but like how to take control of my destiny, you know, how to like write down your goals and shoot for what you want and then get it. And I think coming out of high school, you know, right before I met him, like I was capable and everything. I wasn't like, you know, I had some skills or some promise, but I didn't know how to like focus that into really doing something great. And what he taught me is the courage to write it down, because what he had every one of his runners do is literally you have a physical little mini journal and you write down your weekly mileage, you log all of your work, which is what distance runners typically do. But he wanted it to be like not on the computer back in those days, you know, like 2013. He wanted you to write it down.
Yeah.
And not just that, he would take your log like at the end of the week and grade it as if it was like homework, which is kind of weird. So he would write in it, and he would like give you tips or critique you or encourage you or whatever, right? But it was kind of like in the format of school. So I started thinking of like running and school is sort of the same. Like you do homework and you study and you listen when they're lecturing, and then you do well on the exam. Same format, same idea. So what he kind of going off of a tangent, but what I wanted to say is he really like critiqued me or told me to write down more and to tell me or to for me to tell him what my goals were, because he would sit down and then ask you, so like, okay, so what do you think you're capable of this year? And like that's a huge question when you're 19 years old and you don't really know. And it's like you might have big dreams, you might kind of know that you want to be great at something, but when he asks you specifically, like, so what do you think you can do? Like, where do you see yourself in the state or in the whole like competition, right? Like, why are you here? So it kind of puts you on the spot.
It's
and
intimidating, huh?
Yeah, I was intimidated at first. So you know, those first few talks with him where we just sat down and talked about that, I was like really challenged. I didn't really know how to respond at first, but it kind of switched my way of thinking of like, oh, I've got to like put it out there. I've got to like say what I want and tell someone else, ideally your coach or your mentor.
Yeah.
Then it's out there in the world, or you know, more realistically, it's out there with your coach, with your mentor, with who you're working with, and then it just becomes like a goal that you guys work on.
Yeah.
And it becomes easier to do. But yeah, I think it was really key to just have someone else force me into that, to just make me tell them what I want to accomplish. There's a mentorship program that I signed up for because it was like it's kind of like a shadowy organization. If you work in government, it's like there's like a veil between the private sector and the public sector, and no one really knows how the government works. It's always so like complicated, and it's like, why are there potholes, you know? Like it's really easy to just blame things on the government, and I don't blame it. Like I blame the government too. But the thing I'm trying to say is I didn't know how anything worked when I joined. I was like, okay, so now that I'm hired or I'm going through this process, it took me 3 months of interviewing and fingerprinting and background checks. Now, what do you do here? Like, what am I supposed to do, right? How does it all work? So they have a mentorship program, and I was lucky to get with someone who's been there, like a veteran, like 25, 30 years. She's like a budget expert, so she's really, really good with money and funding, sourcing and spending. So she kind of taught me about the organization, about public money and public spending, expenditure from like the budgeting standpoint. And I'm an engineer, so what we're supposed to do is just get the money and then spend it well, like fix the roads or whatever, right? Yeah. But she kind of taught me this other branch that most engineers don't know. So yeah, it was like the mentorship came initially from outside of my line of work in my current job, in my current role, which was good and bad. You know, like I didn't really have any specific engineering mentorship at my current role, but I'm also like a little bit experienced, so I don't need as much. But it's just still nice to have someone who's like on your team. Yeah. Maybe someone you report to directly who can like provide that mentorship. And they do, but you know, you got to seek it from multiple people most often. If you have like big goals, especially if you want to make it, if you want to be there for the long run and make it to the top, like you really have to seek mentorship from everyone.
Yeah.
So it's kind of difficult. It kind of feels like you're just thrown into the fire. And it's like, well, how am I supposed to learn all this? Like no one really knows. So you ask around and you just go to multiple people.
But it could also be very overwhelming if like there's so many different perspectives when you're like, wait, I thought this was right, but now you're telling me it's the opposite. It's kind of confusing, right? What I wanted to get to also when it comes to where you're at right now, your athletics, you obviously took some principles from your athletics into your career now. What are probably some of the biggest ones that you took from the athletics of your principles that you implement when it comes to your career?
This is a great question. This is something we always talked about, like in college. I would just say dedication and discipline, the two words that come to mind.
Yeah.
Probably dedication first, because you just have to dedicate yourself fully to something and go all in, whether that's running, lifting, fighting, engineering, or whatever your line of work is. If you go all in, it's only a matter of time before you do well.
Yeah. Do you think it's just time though?
Yeah. And I think that's a little bit more tied into the discipline part, where you can be fully dedicated, but sometimes you're not really motivated. And, you know, even today, like I woke up a little bit late, got my run a little bit later, and it was like, man, like it just sometimes it just doesn't feel good to do work, but you have to do the hard thing and you have to be disciplined because, yeah, it's better to live with like the short-term pain of just getting up and doing the thing or putting in the time than like a long-term kind of guilt for not doing it. That's more of a deeper psychological hurt that I don't want to have. Yeah. So discipline is the other part, but I would say first just dedication. Like that's what we had to do for athletics, for running. Like, you know, you pay for your school by running, so you're pretty much professional at that point. Yeah. So you have to be dedicated to running first if you want the education. And yeah, that's the easy big thing that you just take over to your career. Like you dedicate yourself to your career now because that's what's making you money.
Were you always disciplined when you were growing up? Like, did that get hit at a certain age or?
I was pretty disciplined in high school. Like you remember me always running and stuff, and people thought I was crazy, and it was really hard to just be disciplined and do what I wanted to do without getting like a little bit of like made fun of, I guess. It wasn't like I was bullied or anything, but it's not really cool to be up at 6 a.m. running.
Yeah. I thought it was cool.
Exactly. Like, yeah, that's why we're still friends. Athlete, and that's why we're still friends. Cause like you always understood me. But a lot of people just didn't. It was kind of weird. So it was a weird time of life to try to be disciplined when everyone was just like, chill out, man. It's all right. Like you don't have to run.
Did you ever want to stop at a certain point? Like, did you kind of listen to the noise sometimes?
In college, yeah. I think I'd struggled a lot, like at MSU. It was like my last stage of college athletics, and I was being pushed to the limit, you know. Ran some of my best times ever there, and for that reason too, like because I was at my limit, it was always like I was flirting with the idea in my head of like, this is just too much. Like I can't do it. Like I just have to quit or just lie down today or not show up at practice. And, you know, sometimes I had to kind of do that. And doing that with school too, which we've talked about before, I think school is also very demanding. So sometimes you start thinking, I got to quit this because I don't have time for school. And, you know, not everyone knows the reason you might be struggling, which also makes it more difficult because you might get crap for not seeming fully dedicated, but you're really just burnt out.
Yeah.
So I think I held on for dear life for some of the times in college. Hartnell too, but I think at MSU is a lot. Yeah, I think college athletes just get pushed to the very limit sometimes, and it's probably better now. I don't know, but I know that when I was there, it always felt like no one really or I guess the system itself didn't really know what it felt like to be inside of the athlete's body and know what it really felt like to be one of us. But there were coaches and mentors and friends along the way who understood that and really helped me pull me through and pull everyone else through.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I definitely struggled with discipline sometimes in college because you're just burnt out. You do the same thing over and over again.
Did you ever have a breaking point? Because I remember my athletic career, like I took a whole year off from the game, and I was like mad at it almost, like
Yeah.
disappointed. I was like pissed off, and I was like I was losing, so I lost 2 fights in a row. So I just kind of took a year off, and I was just mad at the game. It was at my breaking point though. Did you ever had a breaking point to the point where you wanted to just completely stop?
I think I had a kind of mini episodes of that kind of thing in high school. Obviously, the stakes weren't higher, but I wasn't as mature back then. So I remember being really disappointed in some races in high school and like literally crying on the drive home because I didn't do well. And I did that again later in college. Like I had to literally, didn't do well at a conference championship, sat down against the tree and just cried. And it like kind of sounds weird to say, but like I was so emotionally invested that I just wanted to quit when I didn't do well for those short episodes. And usually it didn't last more than like several months because you pick yourself up eventually. Yeah. But yeah, I think there were definitely times where like I was really humbled and heartbroken. I think heartbroken's a good word for it, where I just didn't feel like adequate, sufficient. I didn't feel like I was good enough and I just wanted to quit.
Yeah.
But those times come in every athlete's life, every person's life, and I think you just need to sit with that discomfort sometimes and let it come and let it pass, right?
This is a weird thing to ask and say, but I almost miss it's just stupid to say. I almost miss the feeling of losing because of the after effect of what it does to you. You know what I mean? Isn't that
I'm winning all the time now. I miss losing.
No, but like I miss losing hard. Because when you lose a fight, it is very, very depressing. Like you put so many months and you're training 3 times a day. Your whole heart is in this for one specific date, and you lose in front of everybody and your coaches, your team, your friends, your family. It is the most depressive thing ever. So I missed that, and then the after effect of what happens when you do. Mm-hmm. There's little losses now, not big, significant ones, but I'm kind of waiting for that one to hit just so I can improve.
I can kind of relate. Like things are pretty stable in my life too, so it hasn't felt like I've really hit rock bottom.
Like crying, like you were like crying in the car. Like it hasn't been like that.
Right. Like I shed some tears for my dog that died, but that was different. That was just like, oh man, But yeah, the kind of heartbreak that's like full, like I just lost everything. Right. We haven't felt that in a long time. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing to say.
I like missing it.
Yeah, I think that's what people say, or what they mean when they say they miss the grind or they miss being on a team. It's like the whole process of it, right? They don't just miss the victories and the camaraderie, but they miss the whole investment and sometimes the heartbreak too, because it gives your life a lot of purpose. And it's not like we don't have purpose now, but it's just so much more obvious when you're in those high stakes situations. You can't really put your life on the line because it's not just about you anymore. It's about those you take care of. So I think that's a natural part of aging too, is like you start having to draw a circle around other people, whether that be your partner and your kids eventually, or just your family or your friends. Like you have to change your priorities.
We've always had the purpose of like say to win in our athletics, but at the same time, there was like a little percentage of our head that was like, we could possibly lose here, something could go wrong.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's like we had to have that percentage of being, no, we're going to win. But I feel like the losing, when you have like that little bit, it kind of keeps you sharp in a way. I don't know if you've ever recognized that. Even when it comes to doing your work, when it comes to you studying, when it comes to doing a project, there's a little thing of percentage which is like, oh, this might not go good. Is this right? Is this correct? It kind of keeps you sharp, right? Do you ever notice that?
Absolutely. Yeah. When you just said that, my mind kind of jumped to... When I was first hired in this role, like the first year was really rough because my supervisor went on maternal leave, so everything just came to me. But there's so many things to learn, and no one really taught me, so I just had to learn it all by myself. At least a lot of it by myself, right? Like I got a lot of help from her and from everyone who was on my team, but it wasn't enough, right? So I was really sharp, and I was really like on high alert all the time. I've moved past that stage and I've worked through it, and I've earned like a small promotion from that. So now things are a little more stable than in my first year of hire, but it's also like sometimes I think of that like, am I just getting too comfortable? Like as work-wise, at least in my career, like stuff at work is feeling like I know kind of most of the things I need to do, and sometimes it gets busy, sometimes it's not as busy, but it's not as like hectic and chaotic and frightening as it was the first year. So I feel like I relax in my brain. But in my first year, I was like, I was on edge in a good way, I think, but I was on edge, and I think it helped me. So it's only a matter of time before that kind of thing happens again, because there's always, with every role in an organization, there's duties and responsibilities that hopefully someone teaches you, but you got to assume that no one's going to teach you.
Yeah.
So when it's time that they just lay those responsibilities on you, you're gonna be on fire again.
Yeah. Earlier you said that you weren't that disciplined. Can you go into more detail? Because this morning I kind of came up here very early in the morning. You were running on the road.
Yeah, it's true. But like,
I was like, Diego.
Yeah. But you also know what it's like to be like a fully dedicated athlete in your early 20s, where that's your whole life. So I feel like I'm just always subconsciously comparing myself to that. So if I say I'm not disciplined, I am. But there's always that like crazy version of me that I compare myself to that is always kind of eating away at my brain of like, you could do more. Like you've done more, so why not do more? And I kind of have to tame that. I don't think it's necessarily healthy to always compare yourself to a younger version of yourself. But it's also, there's good parts of that too, because you got to stay young too. You gotta stay fit, and a little bit of competition with yourself is fine. That always goes a long way.
Like that itch almost.
Yeah.
Like I recently saw one of my coaches over the weekend, and he was like, "Oh, you still training? You're still on the mat?" I was like, "I haven't touched the mat in a long time." Reasons for that too. I'm like, because I invested so much time into that, and it's like if I go back, it's like that feeling where it's like, oh, I know what it takes, and I'm just gonna end up putting more time. And I have like this obsessive kind of like disorder thing where it's like I'm very, very I just put into time and things if I'm really obsessed with it. And I was obsessed with the fight game, and I'm kind of nervous on putting a week into the gym like that, because it's gonna give me that feeling. It was like, man, things still feel the same. Things feel right. It's like, I miss this. I love this. And it's going to end up just getting to that point again. And I don't want to go back there, but I just do enough. Like I'll tease a little bit. Like when I'll go to the gym when I can, I'll spar sometimes, I'll move around, but I can't go back to that feeling of putting so much time into it, because it did take a big chunk of my life.
Right.
And all I want to do is kind of give back, because I missed out on so many family functions, friends gatherings, girlfriends, so on and so forth. Like I didn't care about none of that. I cared about the fight game.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put that first anymore. You know what I mean?
Right. I totally understand. Yeah, me too. It's like now you have to reabsorb all the things you missed out on.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff, maybe you agree, you don't want to reabsorb, like I guess party culture, or like drinking a ton and like doing drugs. We have some friends, or like I have some friends at least, who kind of always told me like, you should be wild in college, because that's your only chance to do it, because you don't want to be wild and making bad decisions when you're in your 30s and you have a family. And my whole perspective was, I don't want to ever make those decisions.
Isn't that so crazy? Like, let's just mess up like crazy during this time of our life.
Yeah.
And be responsible later on.
Yeah. And that's like a strategy some people have used to just like slay those demons early on when you have time, when you have the room to mess up.
Yeah.
And I just never agreed with that.
No.
I don't think it'll ever come to me. Like I know my parents, I know my DNA and how my family works. No one has really been like that, and I've never been like that. So I have no reason to believe that I'm going to like make bad decisions or party a ton later in life when I shouldn't. I don't know. It's just like, to each their own, but to me it just never seemed like a good decision, whether you were 19, 20, or 40 to be wild and or whatever.
I remember being an athlete, I would always see the mistakes that athletes made off their career. Like when, say, they're done with the training camp, they're done with the fight, they're enjoying the win, etc. They go to the clubs, they go to the parties, they go drink and drive, and there was always mistakes. And I feel like if I were to go out after a win, go to a club, and it's going to be reckless, I was like, there's distractions a lot. Like there's people over here pulling me this way, pulling me that way. And those are places I don't want to be or go.
Right.
So it was easy to avoid. So I saw the other athletes make the mistake, and I just kind of took that lesson. I was like, oh, I can't do that. If I do that, then I'm gonna end up like them. I'm gonna go spend a night in jail or put my mugshot. My mugshot's gonna be out there. Like I don't. Why would I want that? Is there one thing in your athletic career that you wish you were able to accomplish?
Oh, tons. Yeah, I think I wish I made like an Olympic qualifying time. I think I wish I did better at NCAA's. Maybe placed higher. At one point, my coach believed that I could win the whole NCAA championship. He said, "Why not? Like you've done crazy things before, so I think you should shoot for it."
Yeah.
And I think it's always possible. Like obviously, I can't go back to NCAA's now, but I can always, stay fit, keep running, and see if I can PR on some kind of time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll happen, but this won't be the same. Obviously, I'm not going to be in any big championships. Probably not going to be in the Olympics.
Yeah.
But I could still qualify for something late in life, right? But yeah, I think there's a little bit of regret. Not regret, I would say just a little bit of disappointment with not reaching some of the goals I had set. But that's literally every single person who ever lived. Everyone has to go through that. Even like the fastest runner in the world, like if you would ask him, would you have wanted to run 1 second faster? He's probably going to say, yeah.
And honestly, even like when it comes to, say, the ladder, I feel like if I were to examine your life, the ladder within school, the ladder within athletics, there was always like climbing that ladder. And in your professional career, what does that climbing the ladder look like?
I don't know, man. I'm still at the bottom.
But that's what I mean, though. So you remember elementary school, you remember middle school, you remember high school, you remember Hartnell, you remember Montana. That's a ladder.
Yeah.
So there's a ladder within everything. Even with your athletics, there was a ladder. Yeah. And there's also a ladder in careers. There's a ladder of like which height do you want to touch? You know what I mean? Yeah. So what does that top of the mountain look like?
So that's literally the kind of question I asked in interviews. I asked in reviews, like, how does it all work? And from what I've gathered over the last few years, no one's really going to tell you, but I think you just have to wait for a vacancy and apply for it. Like, no one's going to come to you and say, you've done really well, you've been doing things outside of your standard roles, responsibilities, so we're going to give you a promotion because we need you to be doing higher level work now. Yeah. That's a dream. That's a fantasy. And it sounds kind of apathetic and negative to say this, but that's my honest observation is that you have to like get it yourself. You have to interview for yourself and kind of be your own advocate. And the reason I like the public sector better is because I feel like it's more based on like merit and laws at the end of the day. Yeah. And some corporations can just do whatever they want. Like why would you promote the best forklift driver, right, for being really good at his job when you'll lose your best forklift driver? Yeah. It doesn't make sometimes it doesn't really make logical sense to promote someone. So that's something I'm really wary of and that I've witnessed and kind of seen with like some friends of mine, some colleagues, and a little bit with myself maybe. And even like with my grandpa and like some of my family members, they've had to deal with so much crap in their lives of like being the best at what they do and being so competent, but if they don't like them or if they feel threatened, why would they promote them? Yeah. Right? It's a threat.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be a threat. So you want to disguise yourself and just be like, right? Like whatever your designs and your goals are when you get to the top, like however you want to change things, I almost feel like the strategy is to kind of keep it to yourself, or at least keep some of the more extreme parts to yourself and just share it with like your friends. Because why, like if someone's in power and someone else who's kind of coming up threatens that power, why in any world would they want to promote you and be like, yeah, come up here, take my job, right? So it can get kind of corrupt and weird like that.
I never looked at it from that perspective. That's crazy.
Just got to be careful, man. I'm just saying, like, it's a chessboard. You gotta be a little tricksy.
So how does that even work?
I'm probably like giving you such bad advice.
No, that actually makes sense though, because think about it. And you want to stay at that spot where it's sustainable. Right. So the man doesn't want to give it to the other person who's climbing the ladder and
Yeah,
And he's noticing like, dude, he did way better than me, and he's only this age.
exactly. I think that's a
Tough.
real thing. And, you know,
It's
that's not
realistic.
ideal.
It's realistic though.
It's realistic.
Yeah.
Like, that's how a lot of people operate. That's how a lot of society operates.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. But I think, in order to make any change, to do any good in this world, you have to acknowledge reality.
Yeah.
And that's the reality we live in.
Yeah.
Hopefully, in your organization, it's not all bad like that, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like there's a little bit of that factor of like, yeah, like some people might feel threatened. But overall, I think most people have a good nature about it. Like if you do well, you will get recognized, and eventually, you will move up, or you will get what you want, or think you will be happy, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I do think it's naive to think that it's all a meritocracy and
Yeah.
that it's just going to happen, because
Yeah.
it's not. Like you have to be conscious of people and what they want and how to get them to give you what you want.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like you have to be a little manipulative, but that's just reality.
And you know what's so funny? I think that's an answer that intimidates people because they expect like some fairy tale kind of thing where it's like, yeah, you just got to do this, you got to do that, and it's
Exactly.
gonna be that. You just
Exactly.
got to stand out, and yeah,
Exactly.
it's not the case.
I think it's the minimum. Like you have to stand out and do well, but you have to find a reason that you are a better choice to make it up than someone
Yeah.
else, which is kind of difficult, right?
Is
I don't
that a
know.
good leader though? You know what I mean?
No, I think a good leader is more of like a um, promotion based on merit or delegation based on capability. Um, and if someone has a better idea and you're the leader, you have to listen to them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that leaders sometimes lack is humility. So, if I'm a leader and someone's better at leading or making decisions than me, then I'm going to have to make him or her fill my role and do something else that I'm better at.
Yeah.
That's real leadership to me. It's just deciding who's best at what. So, you know, in your organization, whatever you want to be, whether you want to be the leader, you want to be the person figuring it out, like just be the best at that, and hopefully that kind of manifests and you earn that role. But yeah, I think leadership is all about like delegation and obviously like communication and inspiration and motivation.
Yeah.
But you have to be humble enough to know what's best for the company, what's best for the team, what's best for the organization, and what's best for the world
Yeah.
or your city or your county or your state, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be conscious of all the circles that you're in, and you want to make the best decision ethically for like the whole universe, ideally, right? I don't know if a lot of leaders have that mentality, but that's how it should be.
Yeah.
That's how I would be. That's how I aim to be, at least.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
A good leader spots the ones who are actually better at those roles than him.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you kind of have to swallow your ego, put it away, and just work as a team rather than, oh, I'm the guy. I'm this. I don't know if you heard this thing where Jeff Bezos, he speaks last when it comes to meetings. The reason for that is because he says, if I talk first, people are going to think like, how could I top that? That's Jeff Bezos, right?
Yeah.
So he's
yeah.
like, I'm going to let everybody express themselves, put their ideas out there, and I'm going to go last because I know my name and I know the status, but I don't like to put it out there as being, no, I'm the guy, so I go first.
Right.
He lets everybody else express themselves first, and there might be new perspectives, there might be new ideas, and he could take that on. He's like, Jerry, I like what you said. Sandra, that was perfect. I want to do this, and you guys are going to work together, do this, put that puzzle together, yada, yada, yada. That's a leader.
Yeah.
That's a leader.
Yeah. I would honestly add to that idea that maybe a good leader should speak first and last.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you need to lead the way, right? So you set the expectation. If you have a weak leader, or if you're a weak leader, people are not going to know what to do.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be chaos. Everyone's going to be doing their own thing. And that happens a lot. But I think a strong, good leader is going to speak first, set an expectation, and let everyone talk, let ideas bounce around, and don't say much, or maybe moderate the whole function, the whole meeting, whatever it is, then speak last.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's like the best way to lead is like you decide a direction or you decide an intention at least, then let the ideas bounce around, discuss, and then afterward you make a decision on where to go and you say that at the end,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Because that I think that's the best way to like earn the respect of the people you manage and the people you lead is like you have to let them know that you're going to take responsibility for things, you're going to set the expectation, you're going to lead the way, but you're also going to let them figure things out and let them have a voice.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're not going to leave them hanging. You're going to tell them what to do or decide, okay, meeting adjourned. That's our direction, right?
Yeah.
It just having that structure makes people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's a good thing. Speaking last.
Going based on leadership again, what do you think defines as a great leader from a fictional character from a good movie that we personally love
Oh yeah.
and somebody that you personally know? What is pretty much a good leader that you know from a movie and from somebody you know?
Ooh, my favorite leaders.
Tough one, huh?
Yeah, man. I mean, how can you deny the one true king of Gondor, Aragorn, son of Arathorn? But
Facts.
um, yeah, I can think of specific people in my job that I look to as leaders. Like our new director of public works, I really like him. He seems like a confident and decisive guy, which I think is like really needed for a leader. So every time I'm like in the same room as him, or if I'm lucky enough to like present something to him or speak with him, it's always like such a pleasure and so comfortable for me because I know that he knows what he wants or what should be there. So it just provides that structure, and then I can just go on about my day instead of trying to guess what he wants to hear,
Yeah.
right? Trying to guess. Like I could guess too. I've
Yeah.
done that a lot, but sometimes when someone is a strong leader like that, it could be intimidating or it just could be comfortable. It's like, okay, it's not intimidating. He just knows what he wants. And
Yeah.
I feel like I get that kind of leadership in my department now at the very top. Um, so, so yeah, but, yeah, I like Chris Cepeda. I already mentioned him like 5 times. He's a good leader. Yeah, back then at Hartnell, he was like just a different kind of coach where he would like personally encourage and motivate you and set the workouts and just tell you what to do. So it was not just like, okay, here's the workout, go ahead, go. He would like tell you why we're doing it, explain the goal behind it, give you ideas and goals for the future, explain why we're doing this because of things in the past, like give you way more
Jeez. He
context.
sounds like my mentor, which is scary.
Yeah, yeah,
Dang.
and then he would just cheer you on during the workout, like screaming at you, yelling at you. Sometimes it was like kind of intense, but it's all to get you to be better. So he was like so invested and so dedicated. So I think that's another part of leadership um, that is essential. Like good leadership to have is dedication and investment.
And I think also what defines a good leader is giving people tactics, steps, strategies so they can surpass you.
Oh,
You know
of
what I
course.
mean?
And maybe also adding on to like what making someone surpass you is like asking them like what do you want, like kind of that conversation that my coach had with me, like where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, what do you want,
Yeah.
and trying to like pull that ambition out of the person, and then once they admit that they want to do more, then obviously like you teach them how to do more because
Yeah.
it's about everyone's personal journeys too. Like the best CAD technician or the best forklift driver, the best whatever, might be the best at what they do. They might be really good at that. They might have experienced everything that they can experience in that role. And as long as they want to move up, which hopefully they do, I think most people kind of do, it's time for them to experience something else. So it's not just about like, oh, now I have to lose my best guy for this and train someone else. It's a personal journey, like you don't want to subject anyone to doing one thing for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Like they've got to learn and grow for the rest of their lives, and being a leader is sometimes being responsible for that. Like you got to take responsibility for where people are at in their careers, in their personal journeys, in their growth journeys, and you got to like kind of moderate that and make sure everyone's moving up at a pace that they want, or at least at a pace that you think is appropriate, right? Like
Yeah.
you can also just set the expectation of like, okay, everyone's going to grow in this company. No one's going to stay the same. And if someone wants to stay the same, that's not what we want.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair game. But yeah, I'm kind of an advocate of like everyone should grow and learn. So even with like my friends at work, I'm always like encouraging them like, hey, you should apply for this. You should You should move up, blah blah. I'm always like trying to hype them up, because even if they're like scared of it, or if they're not sure they're ready for it, like at the end of the day, more likely they're gonna regret not trying
Yeah.
to move up or applying for that or whatever, than the opposite.
Yeah.
Right.
Because say if they did get to that new position and they didn't expect how great it would
Right.
be.
It can only bring blessings, right?
Yeah.
And even if you don't like it, I mean, you can always apply, you can always try, you can always ask for the raise, ask for the promotion. And then if you try it, if you're in that role and you don't like it, then now you know. But you don't know until you try.
I feel like that is one of my weakest points is leadership.
I can relate.
You know what I mean?
I
feel
you
like
weren't
you're
given
a good
the
leader,
opportunity, though, right? You've always been a workhorse.
Yeah.
And this is how I am.
Yeah.
This is what I tell my mentors and my team members, my supervisor at work too, is like the area I want to grow in is leadership, because you're not really given much opportunity to like lead a team or to manage people when you're really good at something.
Yeah.
Like just do the thing, right? But it's time to like start taking responsibility for more people, and especially when you see what's being done and you can, take mental notes and say like, oh, I'm going to do this better when I'm there, or I don't like the way I'm being led, so when I'm a leader, I'm going to lead someone a better way, right?
Yeah.
That can be a motivation too, and that's kind of like, I don't know, that's a big part of, I think, where we're at maybe, or where a lot of people at our stages, where they're at now, is like, you're about to move up, you're about to start managing people and being a leader, but you have to be given the opportunity.
Yeah.
And you have to be conscious of how you're being led, so that you know whether it's a good idea or not to continue the tradition.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the times it's not a good tradition. You need to change things up.
Another one of my weak points is patience.
Yeah, I think, everyone's good at something.
Yeah.
And some people aren't good at things. So, yeah, I think I'm way better at patience now than I ever was before.
Yeah.
But I've also been there where I was terrible with being patient with others, because I couldn't understand how someone else could see the world the way I do.
Yeah.
Like from my head, the way I see everything, I thought that's how everyone saw things.
Yeah.
And I kind of still do. I'm a little bit like that still. Like, okay, like come on, like
of
I
course
can see
run.
it this way. Of course, run.
Right.
Of course, do these things, right? Why wouldn't you? But not everyone thinks the same way.
Yeah.
That took me years and years to get used to. Because that's really difficult. Because then you have to like take your mind away from other people and look at yourself instead, and say, okay, am I okay with being this way and doing it this way if it's not everyone else's destiny, or if not everyone can do this? So it's almost like a test for yourself too.
Yeah.
When you see that you're not patient with others, it's like, okay, but that means you're meant to do something else, and they're meant to do something different.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on the topic. Like, you got to find out what makes people tick, what they're motivated to do, what their greatest ambitions are, and then try to encourage them along that path.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not your path, or it's not the path that you envision for them. So sometimes you can help them, and sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
All you can be is a good friend.
And it's so funny because we invest so much of our put so much work into our skills and developing our skills, but when you put yourself at a certain stage and then you realize, oh wait, there's actually a lot of weak points that I need to touch on. So that's what I started to notice, where I put myself at a position, but if I went to get to a higher position, there's a lot of things that I also need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
So it never ends. That's probably what I like about it also. It's just, it never stops, man. Like
Right.
if, say, my patience gets a lot better, there's still like so many other things that I have to work on. It's just, it never ends. And I like that though, because it's just sculpting up the body, sculpting up the mind. Like it always,
Right.
it's constant sharpening.
It kind of reminds me of engineering too. When you say sculpting the body, you can never stop. There's always something to fix, right?
Yeah.
There's always something to improve on, and just look a little closer and do a little bit better there. That's how engineering is too, especially with like CAD work when you're doing the actual design.
Yeah.
You can make the drawing look perfect, and you can just keep improving things and keep making it more organized and more obvious and more just neat, I guess. Because drawings can be really sloppy, or they can be really neat and organized, but there's almost no end to how good they can be and how organized they could be.
Yeah.
At some point, we're always encouraged, it's good to stop. Like, you have to realize at what point are you putting more effort in than it's worth, than you're getting out of it when it goes out into construction or when they do it.
Yeah.
Maybe the same thing with like, training your clients is like, is it really worth it for me to tell them to wake up at 6:50 a.m. instead of 6:55? Like at some point you're putting more effort into coaching them where they're just getting the same benefit out of it. They're not going to get any more better because of the extra effort you're putting in.
Yeah.
So at some point it's probably appropriate to back off, but it's true, like in any real passion project, you can just keep going. You can just keep working on it.
Yeah.
And like I think you said earlier, you have this like obsessive part of you where like you can go into that in detail and just keep improving and keep
Yeah.
doing things. I think I have that too a little bit, but I think that's a good trait. Like being obsessive is some kind of sounds like a negative connotation, but being obsessive is like what makes things great too. It's
Yeah.
what makes things perfect.
Yeah.
Like people who designed this house were probably obsessive, right? Any
Yeah.
engineer is probably obsessive to some degree about fixing something or designing something, right? You
Yeah.
have to have a little bit of that passion or obsessiveness.
But
Yeah.
Diego, I'm gonna put you in the hot seat a little bit.
All right.
I'm gonna pretend like this is your show a little bit. This is High Value Discussions hosted by Diego Leon.
All
And
right.
then you're the host now.
Okay. I guess if I were having a guest, I've actually thought about this a little bit. Like if I had my own podcast, what would I do?
Interesting.
This is
Yeah,
I'm not doing a good job. I'm just talking about like what I would do if it was my own thing. But I always thought it would be like a self. What's the term for like when you're just talking to yourself, like talking to the camera, and you're like what Chris D'Elia does, except it's comedy. In
Like every
college-
week is a specific topic we're gonna touch on. D'Elia
Yeah.
talks about life events and he makes bits on them.
Yeah, and like if you see like some of these like religious people who like pastors or whoever, they do these podcasts sometimes and they're like sermons.
Yeah.
I would give sort of a sermon. That's what it would be, like some sort of like lecture in its most basic like high end format. That's what it would look like. It's just me like talking about a topic or talking about what people should do or how we should live or the reality of something. That's
Yeah.
how I think it would begin. Because I wouldn't want to like spend too much effort on like scheduling other people.
It's hard.
It's hard,
Dude.
I can't imagine. So like if I were to start, that's how it would be. It would just be myself because I have some ideas or I have some life philosophies, and I would try to like discuss those, but not discuss. I would try to like enlighten the audience on those,
Yeah.
or explain ideas on some topic like history and biology. But yeah, then I would bring people on kind of like you do, I guess. Like if I were to talk with someone else, I would say, what do you do? What's your life purpose? And what has been bugging you? Like what's some of your deepest, darkest, like not like insecurities, but like things that make you uncomfortable, and why? And
Everything.
almost like a therapy session, right?
Yeah.
Like just trying to pull out from someone what they want to see changed,
Yeah.
whether that's in themselves or someone else. Like, and it's kind of an awkward thing to pull up on camera, right? Because you're telling an audience, you're telling
Yeah.
who knows how many people are going to see this.
Yeah. But I think
But-
being an open book, it's, you know what I mean? It's
Right. It's
genuine.
2024.
Yeah.
You can pull dirt on anyone these days. I mean, if I don't want to get political, but if Trump can become president, if some of these political leaders can reach those heights, then like we have to change our perspective on
Yeah.
social media and the things we say. Like, you don't need to keep yourself hidden. You can just be yourself and let it go out into the digital world.
Yeah, but I would say honestly, everything is. I would say everything around me is stressful. As weird as that sounds, but they're good stresses because I feel like there's two types of stress. The stress where there's no improvement going on in your life, that causes stress. I see a lot of people around me who are just kind of staying in the same position for years upon years upon years, even with their health, years upon years upon years, and things are depreciating. Things are just getting lower in value, and that causes a lot of stress. The other stress is when you're in a phase of improvement in area of your life. There's stress on how to get to that next stage. There's
Yeah.
stress on how to get to that next level. There's stress on how to reach that new height.
Yeah.
So those are good stresses. But honestly, I would say I'm probably stressed every single day, but it's a good stress. It's
Interesting.
fulfillment. It's purpose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a good stress.
So is that your answer to like what bugs you and what's like eating away, or what's something that like,
Yeah. I would say like
yeah,
the media company, I would say the
yeah,
investing portfolio, I would say every single venture, it's bugs, but
right,
that's fun bugs. Like it's a fun
yeah,
stress.
yeah,
It's I don't know, man, it's a weird thing that makes me happy when
yeah,
I'm stressed because life was also very, very easy when I was growing up. So
yeah,
that's probably another one of the reasons why I got into fighting because fighting was very, very hard and I got tired of the easy, easy, easy.
right,
So I was like, how do I make my life harder? I'm like,
right,
oh, and let me jump into ventures that are very, very difficult for me to process, to understand. So I have to obsess over everything that I get into. I was not a good fighter in the very beginning. I was like always getting picked on, always getting pushed around, yada, yada. Now I'm became a professional, so on and so forth. Now nobody really touches me anymore, which is great. But I had to obsess in order to get to that position. That was a lot of stress. Every day was very stressful, especially when you're in the fight game. It's very stressful knowing that guy is trying to kill you. Very, very stressful. But I like those feelings. I
mm-hmm.
like that feeling where everything is just so uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Right,
So every day is a bug. Every day is a stress, but it's a good one. Like, say, this conversation. What if one of the cameras wasn't on? You know what I mean? Like, that's a
yeah, yeah,
stress. That's a tech stress. That's a podcast stress. That's the production stress. That's the media production shy where I was like, I made a mistake.
mm-hmm.
You've been in this game for so long. Why are you still making that mistake?
Mm-hmm.
I've made that too. Like it happens.
Yeah,
But they're good stresses to have, honestly.
yeah. I haven't thought of another thing that I can ask you. Weren't you trying to run 10 miles one time, or
I
that was
did
like your
run 10.
goal? You ran
I
10.
ran 10 where
Okay,
my last fight, I
okay,
ran on the track for 10 miles. I saw my opponent post 4 mile run on his
got it.
Instagram and
That's 40 laps.
I just ran until my Garmin said 10.
Oh, okay,
It
okay.
was nuts, bro. Like my hips were so tight,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was done. But it
Okay,
was so boring. It was by
okay.
myself.
Yeah, yeah.
But I remember running and then I took because you have that app on your Garmin and then you took a
Yep,
screenshot and then I
yep.
posted it on Instagram and I tagged my opponent.
Nice.
Oh, you ran 4, I ran 10.
You're like, I'm gonna do more than double it. 2.5x or whatever that is.
So stuff like that where I'm not like I wouldn't consider myself a cardio machine. I wouldn't consider myself like this runner. I'm just
Right,
if
right.
I get put into a situation or a challenge, it's like, dude, this is gonna be rough, but hey,
Yeah.
why not?
I guess like some more kind of dive into your personal life. Um, one time we had a conversation like probably years ago, where you were coming off of fighting and you were lifting more and doing less cardio, and you said, Diego, I've never really been like buff. I've never been huge. I've
Yeah.
always been lean and like kind of strong, but never been like big and built. So that's kind of my new goal. I think you've pretty much you've grown a lot in that. Like you're obviously like physically much bigger.
Yeah.
Um, is that still a goal of yours? What's your goal with like lifting? Do you have any like you got big biceps now?
Yeah.
At least I think you do. Maybe you do. I don't know where you think you are, but like
Yeah.
that was the conversation we had maybe like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and you said that's where I want to go. Like that's where I want to head because I've never had the chance to.
Yeah.
And a lot of runners do that too, where like they're skinny, thin guys their whole lives because they're distance runners. And then they stop running. They're like, like I've never had the chance to get big or to lift a lot, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
do that more. And I'm doing that a little bit, not like all the way, but lifting more, running less.
Yeah.
So like, what are your goals with fitness right now? Are you still trying to get bigger, or
You know, it's
like
so funny. I always talk about like these freedoms,
Yeah,
right? So there's physical freedom, there's time freedom, and there's financial freedom. And I feel like I hit a stage where I'm at this physical point where I just want to feel good.
mm-hmm.
That's it. Like I don't have a particular goal measuring my bicep with
Sure.
tape. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
have like those goals anymore to
yeah,
the point where like I'm trying to get my calf size into this measurement. I'm trying to get my thighs into this level. Like
yeah,
I don't think like that. I just kind of wake up and like, am I mobile? Do I have flexibility? Am I strong? Like, am I durable? Like those are the things I kind of track. If I'm not strong, if I'm not flexible, if I'm not mobile, that's bad.
right.
That's where I'm like, I'm not where I want to be physically. So I think
Yeah,
the older I get, man, I track very, very differently.
yeah,
So I always
And I like to pass that on too with a lot of women that I know who are very obsessive with what they eat, and they're very obsessive on, like, say, their body. And it makes sense because women, a lot of them, they go based on beauty. But I always kind of let them know, like, try to prioritize and focus on physical freedom, where you're not so obsessed over a particular body part or my shoulders or my back.
Yeah.
Just feel good, and the body will take care of itself.
You ever heard of the Brazilian butt lift?
Yes.
Is that a surgery? Or?
It's taking fat somewhere else and putting it in their ass.
Got it. Okay.
It's ridiculous.
Do you remember this thing called it was like an exercise program, like on a video, called Brazilian butt lift. But I think it was a play on the Brazilian butt lift. Now that I have more perspective, like if that's a surgical procedure, this exercise was like dawned on that.
Isn't that crazy?
Where it was like, oh, instead of having the Brazilian butt lift, just do this and you can get the same thing.
No.
But it just kind of reminds me of like a lot of fitness, probably more for women, for guys. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. But it's just in general, it's more focused on beauty and reaching a shape and looking a certain way.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, how do you approach if you have you already kind of said how you approach if you had a client who wants to be focused on beauty or looking a certain way, you kind of try to influence them a little bit on, think about like capability instead.
Yeah.
Think about like physical freedom. So I guess my question is, do you think it should be like that for everyone?
I don't know, because there are professional athletes who have to have a particular look, especially weight classes. People who do bikini competitions or wrestling or MMA or running, you have to stay at a specific weight. So I wouldn't say that. I would say that to the average person who's not an athlete. So me, I'm not an athlete anymore. I mean, I still am. I'm just not a professional anymore.
Right.
So I have to kind of look at it as, there's a lot of things that require my time and attention, but I still need to prioritize my health and wellness.
Yeah.
I cannot prioritize it as a professional anymore, meaning not competing at a certain weight. I don't need to cut down anymore. So I have a full feel. Like I'm full. Like I don't go through my day hungry.
Right.
I'm fed, 80% full usually throughout my day, which is cool. I like that. If I fast, I'll fast. If I'll take something out of my diet, I'll take something out of my diet. If I want to add something, I will. I like to experiment. I like to, I've been doing handstands on the poles lately. Like, that's fun.
Dude, I've seen those.
Those are fun.
So difficult.
But it's fun to like see what my body can do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just trying to experiment on what I can do. Like, that tree, it looks fun to climb.
Oh yeah. You can do it right now.
I just want to see like what my body can do.
Yeah.
And the more I can just see and experiment, I'm like, what else could I do?
Right.
That's it. So I don't think it's for everybody, but I think when you're done with your athletics, try to focus on the physical freedom where you're not so addicted to like, God, I'm so fat. God, I'm so like, oh, it's mentally draining, man. Like, you can't talk to yourself like that.
Yeah. I think it's like really healthy to take your mind out of how you look and more about what you can do.
Yeah.
Because that's more realistic. Kind of going back to that like embracing reality concept is like, life's more about what you can do and what you're capable of than what you look like.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yes.
I was gonna say, doesn't it feel so good to focus on what you can do and your capabilities instead? Because you know that going into any room, like you said, you could climb that tree.
Yeah.
Or you could take anyone in this room, or you could run to that mountain if you wanted to. Like you could be there in a couple hours. You wouldn't die.
And that's where like having the physical freedom, and now it's time freedom. Now it's financial freedom. Like those are just like, there's layers of freedom that everybody needs to touch. I feel personally, I'm like, I don't like to say like I figured out fitness. It's a stupid thing to say, but
you figured it out.
But I just don't obsess over it to the point where it's like I'm trying to get huge. I like to feel full. And if I get bigger along the way, great.
Right.
That's awesome. Because I'm not trying to stay small. I was small my entire life. So I know my body's going to get older. I know my body's only going to mature. So it's going to get more full. It's going to get more loaded. So cool. I'm not opposed to that. I'll welcome that. I'm like, awesome. Like I look different. I'm stronger. I'm more mobile. I'm more flexible. More aware. That's just kind of one of the things that I prioritize. I'm not trying to like PRs. I don't track my numbers when it comes to weights. I don't. If I see something heavy and somebody tells me to lift it, okay, I'll try. Like, see if it
I'll
works.
try.
You know what I mean? If I can't lift it, I can't lift it. If
Yeah,
I could,
yeah.
I could. But I'm not gonna be like, dude, oh my god, 375, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. That's just not my way of like thinking of like fitness and stuff. You know,
Right.
it's very odd. I just think of if I feel good and if I'm doing good, I'm okay. That's
yeah.
it.
And like just to I guess expand more on like the functionality of it. Doesn't it feel good to just to lift furniture when someone needs something
Dude,
done? Like
yeah.
I hate the feeling of like like I guess like if I am ever with my family and I tell them I give them lifting programs, say, hey, like you're getting older. You need to do these deadlifts. You need to
Yeah.
move. You need to get up and walk. And if they don't do it and then they try to move furniture, then they hurt themselves. It's like
Yes.
kind of goes to that patience thing where like that's the patience thing I really struggled with is like why are people just like creating problems for themselves? They're like ignoring the good advice, complaining about the bad things that happen to them, or if not that, they're just not capable of performing their normal lives because they're
Yeah.
not taking care of their health. And now like someone else has to take responsibility for that.
Yes. And I
That's
never want to put myself in that position. It's my
yeah,
worst fear.
right,
If
right,
if I was ever to be immobile, no, there's no
right,
way. Say if I
right,
was ever to get in an accident, I told my family this. If I were ever to get in an accident and if I was going to be a paraplegic or I'm not going to be able to walk anymore, put me away. I
right.
cannot look back and see images of myself of what I
Yeah,
was and now I can't move. There's no
yeah.
way I can live like that.
And at some point it will happen like the day before you die of old age, let's
Yeah.
say.
Yeah,
Like
for
let's say
sure.
you live to 100
I'd be
and
golden.
there's probably like, you know, when someone dies kind of old age or something very natural causes that kind of thing, they're probably not going to be lifting furniture or
Yeah.
shoveling snow. They might be, you know,
Yeah.
I know that that happens in Montana. People shovel snow and they die because they're just older and their heart gave out. So it can, you know, you can be you can be fit to pretty much the end of
That's a
your
way to
days.
go.
But I guess that's what I'm saying is like how many days, weeks, months or years do you want your discrepancy to be? You want it to be a minimum, right? Like my grandpa, he was the kind of guy, he wasn't necessarily like an athlete, but he was always I guess kind of fit and strong cuz he was like in the military or whatever.
Yeah.
But he was like functional up until 2 weeks before he died. He was like 90 or so, like 88 maybe.
Shout out to grandpa. That's
Yeah.
crazy, bro.
He kind of died of old age, basically pancreatic cancer. That's not old age, but it was sort of old age. You know what I mean? Like his body couldn't really fight it.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is like he was functional up until basically 2 weeks before he passed. So it came
Yeah.
really suddenly. But that's how I want to go too. Like I don't want to be decrepit in my old age, and I can't imagine how anyone would want to be. And that goes again back to the patience thing of like not everyone thinks the way I do. Some people want to be decrepit, right? They want to be feeble. And when I say that, like when I'm with you, no one's gonna give me shit. But if I say that in any other sphere, they're gonna be like, no, no, no. Like they don't want that. They're just
Yeah.
not in control of it. But the reality is they are in control of
Yeah.
it, and they're deciding not to do anything about it. So
Yeah.
you want to be feeble. You want to be feeble more than you want to work out.
Yeah.
And people don't want to think that hard into the reality of their decisions. They just want to pretend that they're a victim of old age or whatever instead of just working out.
Yeah.
How do you fight that psychology and that mentality in your life? Do you ever see that around?
I
Is that a
do,
problem?
man, and that's where I was always looked at as the food police. I was always looked at the fitness police. Like I was like, you're doing this wrong. You're eating this wrong. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do that. And I don't like to be that guy to tell people like what to do. I just kind of like want to live by example. You know what I mean? It does break my heart though when you do see family, especially as they get older.
Yeah,
But they know deep down, like they know what they're doing.
right.
Everybody
It's
does.
kind of weird, right?
Everybody does, but you don't prioritize it until it's too late.
Mhm.
Until you get an accident, meaning you fall down and faint randomly.
Yeah.
Or say your heart stops for a moment and then you wake up in the hospital and they're like realize, this is really high, your levels are very out of normal, this and that. And they're like, wait, why? How? This and that. It sucks, man. And
Yeah.
I try
Yeah.
to throw a little information sometimes, but not demand.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to say, what the hell are you eating? What is this junk? You know what's in that? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
All the
yeah.
oils and this and that. Like, I don't want to be that guy. I'm just going to throw some information.
Yeah.
And hopefully they take it in.
Right. I think that's where I'm at too. Where like I have to own my fitness or my life philosophies as my own.
And that's the thing too. Like accidents happen, right? Car accidents, this and that, like so on and so forth. But if you can prioritize your health, like your well-being, and not like prevent any sickness or illness, why wouldn't you prioritize that?
Right.
That's another odd thing that I cannot fathom or think about. I can never imagine myself decreping my body purposely.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's where I will be miserable. You know, we were talking about stress earlier. That's when you'll notice me stressed. And that's the bad kind of stress, not the good kind, the bad kind. It's a tough question because everybody's different too. And everybody's at a different phase and stage of their life. So, like I said, man, just live by example is the best way to do it. You know, if people notice like you have very high energy and you're very outgoing and you're very aware and you're very fit, they kind of ask you questions.
Right.
And you hope that the answers that you give them, that they take it with them.
Dude, it's dangerous when people start asking me questions in those arenas though.
Yeah,
like
me
if
too.
I'm with friends or family or some group and then they're like, "So like, what's your day-to-day like? How are you fit?" Oh, dude, you're opening a can of worms. Like you just open the Pandora's box of me like lecturing to you. See, this would be like my sermon that I would talk about on the podcast. And
but
it's not
very necessary.
It is
very necessary. Yeah. And people probably look at that like, oh, God, why is Diego talking about this, talking about that? They're very necessary topics.
Yeah.
They're essential topics, actually. So
and that's what we believe. It's not just necessary and essential for us. Like, we believe it's necessary and essential for everyone else. And I think that's why, at least for me, that's why I do these things. Like, I don't just, the book Born to Run?
Yeah.
Like, that kind of changed my life. And it wasn't about one person or a team or a few people being born to run. It was actually about humans being born to run.
Yeah.
So a lot of the reason why I run is not just because I like doing it, but because I think humans are built to do it.
Yeah.
I think the fact that we run on two legs, a lot of our biology is kind of primed you for distance running. So a lot of the things I do, it's not because I want to do them personally, uniquely. It's because I think everyone should do them and it's just like natural. And that's what is challenging for me is like, how do I balance my lifestyle or my decisions, owning them and making them only my own, or embracing the fact that I believe everyone should do them. It's tough. It's hard to like let go of watching other people deny what you do or deny what you're like preaching because they don't believe that.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I think you're mistaken, Yeah. It's like a fundamental difference of like, for those that I really love, I'm going to want to see them get blessings, right? I want to see them have a great life. And so the things I do are the same things I would want anyone to do.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a difficult thing.
I told my cousin this recently. She's approaching college. This actually made me so happy, bro. Like, I was genuinely like so proud of her. And she said, I'm approaching college. I'm going into a different stage of my life. I need to change my health and I need to change my well-being.
Interesting.
She lost a bunch of weight. But I also kind of gave her those tidbits because she was asking me the right questions, right? And I was just letting her know, be careful when it comes to tracking. Be careful when it comes to looking in the mirror. Be careful with all those little things. Be careful with the scale. Those are tools, but be careful.
Yeah.
Because when you say, I can't eat that right now, I can't drink right now, it's you're giving yourself stress. And stress is the biggest progress killer. I don't care what anybody says. Like, that's one of the biggest things that I told former clients. I'm like, how's your sleep? How's your love life?
Yeah.
How's your work?
Yeah.
How's your kids? I have to ask them all those personal questions because if that's at a level high of stress, it's going to be very, very hard to reach to the progression level. Very, very difficult. So I always told her, prioritize your stress management.
It's funny. That's so true what you're saying about like managing your other parts of your life, your stress, your lifestyle. Sometimes people come to me because they know I'm a runner and they know I've been through a lot of things with running and know a lot. They're like, so my like shin hurts right here, like right here, right. And
like,
they go immediately to some problem they're having. And the truth is, the first thing I want to say is, how's your sleep? How's your diet?
Yeah.
And like, how could that possibly be related? I'm asking why this hurts. It's like, I don't know why it hurts, but I know how you can prevent it from hurting.
That's correct.
It's like, I'm not an expert, but I'm wiser
Yeah.
than like just going to the exact reason. Like, hey, sometimes you don't need to diagnose someone with exactly why something's hurting. Just get your life right.
Yes. And they're asking you questions because, like I said, going back to the whole example thing, you're leading by example. It's the same thing with somebody who's like saying, involved in real estate. Like, oh my God, where did you get all these properties? How did you get all these properties? Or people who have a hedge fund. How did you recruit all these traders? How did you recruit this? Like, what is your guys' strategy?
Yeah.
Like, you ask questions for a reason. You know what I mean? Because people are at a different level.
Yeah.
And the people who ask are curious, which is good, and I applaud that. But you
Mhm.
also need to execute. Like, don't ask if you're not going to execute.
Mhm.
That's my thing, because I see that way too much. And me going back to the patience thing, I don't like wasting my breath on that. I love to give free game as much as I can, but when I don't see any execution, that's what tears me apart. I'm just like, how long
Yeah.
was that talk we had? 30 minutes, maybe an hour? That was a long time. And I'm like,
Right.
that bothers me.
Right.
Patience, though, it's something that I need to work on, but that kind of
Yeah.
grinds my gears at this moment.
I was gonna say, kind of relating to that idea. Do you know how many training logs I've set up for people that are just sitting there in Google Drive, unopened by anyone but me?
That's crazy.
It's just like they want to be better at running or something. So I'm like, okay, here's a log to track your discipline, because all it is getting your life right, tracking your sleep, your mileage, maybe your food if you want.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you got to just do those things and track them and then have a record of it so that I can look at your past holistically and see on one page, what have you been doing with your life?
Yeah. 110%.
That's all it is. That's how my coaches trained me. So
yeah.
it made sense.
Yes.
But that's how I train people too, is like, if you want to get good, I have to know what you've been doing.
Yeah.
And I have to know what you're doing today so that in a month we can assess.
Yeah.
I can look and say, okay, based on your history, let's write something.
Yeah.
Like, let's progress into something. But how many people don't want to do that? Everyone.
I know, man. It's tough.
Yeah, and I don't like charge people. I don't have a business or anything, but if I help someone on the side, that's how it goes. I say, okay, ask you a few questions, give you a log, set this up for you, and they don't want to do it because they don't want to do the work. But
you know why I stopped that? It's because they didn't follow through.
Yeah, it's
So
the execution that you were talking about, right? So
the work
it's-
done. They got to the
yeah.
goal. They got to the physique level. But afterwards, when we were done working with each other,
Yeah,
they didn't follow through.
right.
But that had to be my approach too. I'm like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah,
It's not just all them. It's maybe something that I could have done that I didn't maybe mention to them, or we didn't practice during our couple of months that we worked together. I was like, maybe I did something wrong. So it's both perspectives. It takes two to tango. So
Yeah.
I can't just blame it on the person. I have to look at me too.
So yeah, kind of on that idea where like it was hard for you to see people reach their physique or reach a goal, so it was successful at first, but then they didn't fall through. That kind of sucks, right? It's a little heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So that's why you pulled away from it. Do you think that's where you might have to separate business from like personal life, or business from like what you want to see in others? Because I'm kind of thinking, like, especially in personal training, it's a business.
Yeah.
Like, you're not in it to see people improve. You're in it to get paid.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying that's what you are in it for,
Yeah.
but that's what a business functionally is like providing a service and getting paid for it, money,
Yeah.
and to provide value. So like, was the purpose to follow up with them and have them change their life, or was it to get them to that point and provide value and get paid for it, right?
Yeah, man. My
Is that-
whole goal with that is I just wanted them to be a different person. Like,
Yeah.
and I told them, I was like, look, you want the first when we're having these calls, right? In the very beginning, I said, look, you want to have these different results, right? You need to become a whole different person.
Mhm.
I was like, whatever you were before, that person needs to be buried,
Right.
and you need to be a whole different person.
Right.
But I tried to keep that momentum and mindset throughout the entire process. That way they can keep that when we're done. Because I
Yeah.
also don't like to keep them for years upon years upon years like all these other people do. I
Yeah.
don't. I like to work with you 5 months, 6 months, 9 months, so on and so forth. But if there's a time where I notice that you did it, you don't need me anymore. Stop giving me your money. You did it. Go execute. Now go tell your family why you look so good and have them execute also. Because the whole point was just to give knowledge and information to the point where they can give it back.
Kind of again on that idea, this is America, so there's plenty of business in having that business model, having that kind of mindset of like fix someone forever and then go to someone else who needs help, right? But there's also a part of business where you want cash cows, not me or you necessarily, but like it kind of goes back to our earlier conversation about like sort of a darker topic on like health and wellness and diseases, but like if someone is chronically getting out of shape and then coming to you or coming to someone to get back in shape, that's great business.
Very, but it's
so there's
tough,
a little bit of
man. I've done that twice.
Yeah.
Where they came back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what happened? That's the question that they don't like. What happened?
Yeah. And like, from a business standpoint, why would you ever ask that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the conundrum of like mixing business with your true passion.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you want to fix something for good so that you don't have to touch it again.
Yeah.
And that's how I want to be with civil engineering. So, you know, eventually I'm going to have that mindset of I got to be careful not to like chronically have these like roads that keep breaking down or houses that keep breaking down, because that might be good business, but it's not really moving society forward. It's just a broken system at that point.
Agreed, man.
So, yeah, like we're only here for 100 years, so I would say let's just contribute to fixing the whole overall thing and then move on. I think that's kind of our main purpose in life is not to just make cash cows and form businesses and make money, but to like fix the real issues. However long that takes. We can still make money doing that.
Yes.
We only live here 100 years. We can still make a good business and fix things permanently. But I think the fundamental purpose of a business is to have an operating budget, right? It's kind of like in the public sector, like we don't like, we just take money from people who earn it. That's our income, taxes, right? And that's the function of government is you know, people share a little bit of your earnings and then we make things better for you. Or at least that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I think a part of business, or like maybe the flaw in it, is like that's kind of an idea of it too. Like if you're really going to fix things or start a business to improve the world, it's always going to be limited. Business is always limited unless you figure out a way to keep making money. So like, why would you cure someone if you get paid making them feel better, right?
Yeah.
Why would you fix someone's issue if you get paid temporarily fixing it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Kind of goes back to the conversation about like corporate culture or moving up. Like you got to be careful about like the purpose of the system. Like you can have a great business or it can appear stable and great, but what do you want out of it? Do you want to just like make money and keep secure your potential income, or do you want to like fix something and feel proud of the work you're doing? In that case, your business might be limited. You might reach a theoretical endpoint of the work you can do.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because I think the stuff that I do and probably the stuff you do too, it's not like you're going to run into a shortage of people who need help. Like I said, it's America. There's plenty of problems to fix. Yes. But within our lifetimes, you know, we're not going to really run into an issue of running out of ways to make money by trying to permanently fix things. Yeah. So like I'd rather make a road or a house or some sort of facility that works for 100,000 years and do that with all of the houses, all of the roads until we have all of them fixed for the next 1,000 years. Then we can think about something else or move on to some other part of our efforts, right? Of our human exploits.
Yeah. My whole goal within like every intention was to create sustainability. If there's no sustainability, what am I doing? Like if I was doing it for money, I'm not going to be successful. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I have that
you could
mindset,
make money and be successful that way, but why make money?
It was just a byproduct. It was just a tool. It was nothing where it was like a priority. It was like, if I genuinely love what I do, it's giving me a purpose and fulfillment. That matters first. But the mindset of like money, not going to get very far. But anyways, brother, we went way over an hour, my man. And I hope we do this again. And here, actually, this is going to be our studio every time we do this. We're
why
burning
not?
Right now.
Come over, man. It'll be a good day.
So, my brother, my last question. I would like you to pass on to the audience a very valuable piece of wisdom What's one of the one things that you would want to give to the audience?
Oh man, I feel like I had thought about this before. Maybe don't wait for anything. Like the old man or woman that you envision yourself being, just be that person now.
Yeah.
Don't wait for wisdom to arrive. Just be it now. Be the old man. Be exactly what you want to be in 100 years right now. Because it's better to be that person in a 20-year-old body than later in a 90-year-old body. Believe me.
110%. Brother, are there any closing statements for the podcast, my man?
Stay well, stay healthy, and move up the ladder, folks.
Brother, thank you for coming on, my man. I love you. You are my brother in arms, and I cannot wait to do this again with you, brother.
Hell yeah.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. If you got a lot of value out of this, please do me a favor and support our channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure to hit that follow button on Spotify to stay updated with our latest episodes. And if you are listening on Apple Podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a 5-star rating, followed by it with a review. And now, a word from Sarah Manoni, Executive VP from Trek. Dragons take many forms. The hardest task of the day, a new responsibility, an impending deadline, and even dealing with conflict. And the trick is to slay that dragon and move on. Don't overthink it. To succeed, you have to have the confidence to take things head on and keep moving forward. Again, thank you all for the support. Stay loving, stay hungry, and stay excellent.